This video is made possible by PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Join the over 100 million players currently playing PUBG Mobile for free by clicking the link in the description. We as humans seem to be absolutely fascinated with violence and destruction. It appeals to something in our basest evolutionary core, and regardless of the time period, culture, or language, humans have expressed their desires for violence through sport. Even today, dozens of football players in the past 15 years have died from injuries they suffered during matches, and many more have died during inherently violent sports like boxing. Of course, none of these sports are intended to cause people to die. Whenever that happens, it's an unfortunate side effect of the game. But what if that wasn't the case? Could a violent battle royale type of game similar to PUBG happen today in the modern world with real violence and real consequences? Of course, there is a lot of precedent in our past for something like this happening. Take the gladiatorial games in ancient Rome as probably the most infamous example of something similar. These death games went on for 1,000 years across the Roman Republic and Empire, and were wildly popular. Wealthy Romans running for public office would sponsor games personally in the hopes of securing the spectators' votes, and the games eventually even became sponsored by the state in order to entertain their subjects. The gladiators themselves weren't just slaves or convicted criminals forced to fight either. It's believed now that approximately half of all gladiators that fought in the arenas were actual volunteers, who were doing it in the hopes of winning money, fame, and glory. Gladiators were the celebrities of their time and were often some of the most famous and wealthiest of citizens. To give you an idea of just how massively popular these games were to the Romans, Emperor Trajan celebrated his military victories in Dacia using over 10,000 gladiators and 11,000 wild animals over the span of just 123 days. The human beings who watched and participated in these death games were no different than you or me are today, which establishes that it can be within our capability to do something similar again. It may seem impossible today, but allow me to present you another terrible historical example that wasn't too long ago. The Nazino Affair. In the Soviet Union during 1933, Joseph Stalin deported 6,000 people he considered political enemies to Siberia. These people were all dropped off on a tiny island only 3 kilometers long called Nazino in the middle of a river in the middle of nowhere, given only flour to eat and only very simple tools and supplies to survive with. Guards stood around the island for months with orders to shoot anybody that tried to escape, while society on the island almost immediately broke down into borderline anarchy. Gangs began to form on the island who used violence to dominate their positions. People were frequently killed in fights over the scarce supplies, all the while the guards watched from the shore and hunted those who escaped to the woods like they were wild animals. Cannibalism on the island became rampant as the flour ran out and thousands of people died. After months of this living nightmare going on, the Soviet authorities finally ended the situation by transporting the survivors somewhere else. But you can see from this example how when society breaks down in a densely populated area, life basically becomes a free-for-all battle royale with the survivors winning the most precious prize: life itself. It was physically impossible for 6,000 people to exist on a small remote island with no supplies at the same time. Supplies had to be brought in or people had to be removed. In a modern densely populated area, if an apocalyptic scenario happens and supplies like water run short, the same principle will likely become true. That is the most likely way that I could ever see a situation like PUBG happening in the real world. But there is another weird example that's even more recent. In 2016, a Russian businessman named Yevgeny Piatkovsky proposed a new survival reality TV program that he called Game 2 Winter, set to air in July 2017. The show was going to take 30 participants divided between 15 men and 15 women to a remote island in the middle of a river in Siberia, just like Nazino, and leave them there for a 9-month survival mission for a $1.7 million cash prize. All of the participants were supposed to sign death waivers and agree not to hold the show responsible for any criminal activity that happened while there. Perhaps this quote from Piatkovsky himself summarizes what this show would have actually been like. We will refuse any claim of participants even if they were to be killed or raped. We will have nothing to do with this. This will be spelled out in a document to be signed by the participant before the start of the show. We will not intervene into relations between participants nor monitor their sexual life either, and our cameras will not be able to follow every move in every corner of the island. Comments like these, and the fact that the rules allowed for murder to take place, sparked international outrage, despite the fact that 340 people actually signed up to participate on it. Perhaps like the gladiators of ancient Rome, some of us really aren't as different from them as we may like to think. But probably due to this enormous backlash, Kwiatkowski eventually claimed the whole thing was just a social experiment and a publicity stunt, which I think reveals the truth that a PUBG-style deathmatch game just couldn't possibly happen in real life with current social norms. The backlash and legal issues would just be too much for it to take place, and that's certainly for the best. The best way to enjoy a Battle Royale type of game is to play it virtually where your actual life isn't really on the line, and PUBG Mobile is a great way to experience that. The game is completely free and available to download on both Android and iOS, and features the same 100-player all-out battles that the PC and console versions have. It's an authentic PUBG feel with 2 enormous and highly detailed maps, realistic graphics, intuitive and customizable controls, as well as a large selection of game modes like quick matches that only last for 8 minutes. You can play by yourself or in a squad of up to 4 players, so if it's something you're interested in, click the link in the description to download it for free and join the 100 million plus people who are already playing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week for another new video then.